Hello and welcome to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, your daily partner in decoding current affairs the smart way for UPSC. It's August 19, 2025 and today's edition features two deep dive articles for Mains 2025. First, we discuss the Indian Ports Bill 2025, a crucial reform shaping India's maritime future and federal dynamics. Second, we will be looking into how India stands at the heart of global efforts to end hunger thanks to its policies on food security and nutrition. In our Prelims 2026 Simplified section, we unpack key updates from the appointment process of the CEC and the election commissioners and July unemployment report to nominations in the Union Territory Assemblies, evolving toll collection practices, and a critical look at whether courts can order a recount of votes in the country. So let's begin. Hi guys, I hope you all are doing well. I hope your preparation is going fine. So with this, we'll be starting with today's articles of the day. We will be looking in the very first one about the recent bill to modernize India's ports. Now this is coming after a statement that is given by our shipping minister to modernize our Indian ports on the level of Europe and Singapore. So that is why, in the recent times only, the bill was passed recently in the Lok Sabha and later in the Rajya Sabha as of yesterday. So that is why we will be looking into the major aspects of the ports economy in the country and how will be this bill shaping the future of our maritime sector. Why? Because this is extremely crucial when it's come to the GS3 topic of infrastructure and ports, and that is why we need to also look into from the perspective of prelims, where we need to look into the broader economic concepts, where we have the topic of ports and the modernization of the ports and the recent ports in the news, which we will be also looking via a PYQ. Now, when we talk about the entire context of the need for modernization of Indian ports, we have to go back to our ancient times. We have had so many ports, for example, from the IVC times of Lothal to Muziris and Arikamedu till the medieval times, where we had the Surat, Calicut and the Machilipatnam ports, which actually helped us to center stage our Indian exports for the European markets, to the Roman Empire, to the Greek Empire, and so on. So we have had Arabs, we have had Persians, Chinese and Europeans later who came in, and mainly we have to understand the entire spectrum of economic growth when we talk about import and exports are still today to the tune of 95% of volume which is delivered via the ports of our country. So these are known as the gateways of India's global trade. Now, when we look at the global trade, we also have the aviation sector, right? We have had so many cargo shipping in, shipping out of the country. But when we talk about the volume, when we talk about the heavy equipments, when we talk about the day-to-day supplies of food, of fertilizers, majority, that is 95% of the volume is coming via the shipping lanes. And when we talk about the value, that is in monetary terms, 70% of the same is delivered by the ships of our country. So that is why we have to focus on the importance of the ports in the country, because in the recent times also we have seen how the cargo traffic is only going up at the major ports of our country. Now, before talking about the major ports, look at this 2023 PYQ. Now, this PYQ is touching upon some important ancient Indian ports in the South Indian section. So that is where we have to understand that whenever we have some economic terms in the news, it is also important to look into the ancient and the medieval and the modern aspects of the same, because UPSC in recent times, they have been focusing on bringing back the topics from ancient India and medieval India and also interlink with the current ongoing economic affairs also. Guys, whenever we are reading ancient and medieval India, please do note down some important towns, be it the temple towns, be it the pilgrimage towns, be it the ports, or say the ancient Indian and medieval ports, or also the various art and craft centers, because UPSC in recent times have been asking these questions in the prelims examination. Now, when we talk about the major ports, where we have seen the cargo is only going up over a period of time, these are the ports which are controlled by the center and which are also in the map which is given here. Now, the ministry in charge is actually the Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways, where we also have the non-major ports which are administered by the states. They amount to around 217 in number, and the main objective to bring this bill is actually to focus mainly on the non-major ports and also the improvement and the governance structure of the major ports, and also to bring in more and more private investment, because it has been seen, the majority of our shipping cargo is actually handled by the major ports, because they are actually major. They are actually, since the independence until now, we have had so many schemes for them. We have had so many funding and financing for the major ports, due to which they have grown in size, grown in operations over a period of time. But also we have so many newer private ports right now. Also, we need to promote the private sector. That is why we need to actually talk about bringing the safety, the tariff and the regulation under one complete act, because as of now, the entire governing law regarding the ports in the country is actually managed by the Indian Ports Act 1908. You can understand this is a colonial act which is still ongoing right now. So definitely there will be so many outdated provisions, right? Right now we are at tune with the global maritime shipping standards. That is why we need to also modernize the same. And at the end of the day, we also have to focus on sustainability right now. Now, when I can also give you some more data, you will be able to understand why at all this bill is brought in. Apart from these key objectives, we also have to understand the need to upgrade the existing ports, bringing in proper laws and standards. Firstly, when we talk about the fleet expansion, the government of India is planning to add 1,000 more ships when we will be having 100 years of our independence. Also, when we talk about the investments which we have already planned, by 2035, we are planning around $82 billion for the same. Also, we are trying to push for various mega ports which are extremely advanced ports, for example the Vajiram port, where we are trying to upgrade it. Also, we will be also looking at shipbuilding growth, that is 10,500 crore invested under this for around 313 vessels. Also, apart from this, we have sustainability pushes, we have so many other standards to be following, and that is why we are bringing this new law at this moment. Now, again I'm telling you, I'm bringing you back to the PYQs again from 2023. If you look at this PYQ, you will notice a very curious thing, that they are asking some specific information regarding some very important ports which are always in the news. So that is why it becomes our responsibility to actually look into some basic information on Google, on Wikipedia, or also by using AI or ChatGPT to just look into some of the major information according to some ports which are in the news. Can you tell me in the comments, in Kerala, which was the port which was talked upon and why it was in the news? Because it can be a potential question tomorrow in the prelims examination. Also, if you know this answer, you can let me know in the comments below. Also, look at this question from 2009, years back. They are also asking regarding some of the ports which are in the news. So that is why, if you also know, you can let me know in the comments below. But the main objective is to show you the questions are actually to let you know that the questions are framed in this way. Now, again, if I can tell you some more things apart from showing you the data, that why we are having more major ports in the country, why we are actually having more cargoes in the country. Apart from this, we also have some other issues. While there were some positive developments, these were actually some potential for our shipping sector. These are some of the issues we need to resolve, and those issues can be resolved via using and also implementing this bill properly. Firstly, when we talk about infrastructure, be it the shipping sector, be it the road sector, aviation sector, infrastructure is always an issue. And here we have to understand that there are so many limitations, for example, with reference to dredging or parking of the ships, and also the various polluting aspects. Next, we also use so many outdated equipment. So these are the points which are actually lagging our shipping sector behind in infrastructure. Also, we have to also understand one important thing, that when we talk about the entire cargo in the country that is delivered via the ships, mostly these cargoes are handled at the major ports of our country. But over a period of time, we have also had various ports like Mundra and Sikka, which are private ports, which are increasingly gaining in prominence. Right now, if I'm telling you, they handle around 20% of the traffic. That means apart from the major ports, we also have so many private ports which are gaining in prominence. So that is why, to give them more investment, to give them more standards and regulation, we need this kind of act. Also, when we talk about the operational inefficiencies, in India we have a longer turnaround time. The turnaround time is nothing but when a ship is coming to the port, it is parking, it is dismantling the cargo, it is transporting the cargo via the transportation sector. Also, when the ship is undergoing maintenance, repair, and finally the ship is again handled with several new cargoes, and finally the ship is going back to its destination. So this is the total process that a ship goes around at a harbor, at a port, and that is what it is referred to as turnaround time. If you can look at India's turnaround time, right, we have very high turnaround time in the country. That means we have so many delays, we have so many issues regarding infrastructure and so many other things, regarding complexities, regarding regulations. As you can see here, recently 10,000 steel user units were stuck at the ports due to red tapeism and the port delays, the permissions, the authorities, the licenses that we need. So these are all still complex. Also, recently Japan highlighted some issues regarding the steel consignments which are blocked at Indian ports. So this is also negatively impacting the global image that we have as India with reference to the maritime sector. So that is why we need to solve this kind of issues. At the end of the day, the regulatory and the financial barriers are there. Despite being major ports, the authorities, the port authorities, sometimes do not find enough funds to finance the various projects. Also, the project timelines, delays, and so many other things, these are negatively impacting the private sector too. Because you know, when we talk about the cargoes in the shipping sector, we actually talk about the private sector or the government sector dealing with the cargo on the domestic and the international market. Now, if the markets are facing delays due to our shipping sector, our own importers and exporters will be losing at the end of the day. Next, we cannot ignore the environmental concepts, because here recently in Kerala we had also seen how a major oil spill actually led to so many issues. This oil spill, due to this shipping lanes, gradually degraded also the maritime ecosystem of the local Keralan waters. And that is why, due to non-compliance of the various shipping companies, or due to even the penalties which they give, or sometimes they also do not obey, right, this kind of issues are still there. And at the end of the day, we have various labor issues. There are unskilled workers in the shipping sector. We need more skilled workers. There are poor management practices at the shipping ports in the country. So this is why we exactly need this bill. Firstly, what this bill is doing, it is trying to repeal the 1908 Act, and it is trying to modernize the same with reference to the various provisions. Some of the provisions are still there, but majority of the provisions have been modernized. How they have been done? Firstly, via recognizing the statutory bodies. Now these statutory bodies are the state maritime boards, remember this, and the Maritime State Development Council. Now the SMBs will be for the non-major ports, not for the major ports, because the major ports are handled by the central government. Now the state maritime boards will be looking into developing the port infrastructure, will be looking into licensing and tariff regulations, and also regarding the safety and the environmental compliances that the ships have to obey. Right? So this is how a statutory body via an act of the parliament has been brought in to give broader powers for regulating the non-major ports, where even the private ports will be coming under. Also, we have the Maritime State Development Council, which is chaired by the Union Minister of the Shipping. Now here, the members will be from the coastal state minister. So all of the states which have coastal boundaries and have major and non-major ports will be there. Also, the Navy and Coast Guard representatives will be there. At the end of the day, the main functions here is to look into the tariff transparency and guidelines. So here we have so many tariffs with so many countries, we have so many taxes and so many import duties, other charges, fees. So everything will be looked into by this council. So you can actually look into, this is a broader national level council, right? Also, the data collection and the dissemination framework will be here. which is actually looking into the entire data regarding our shipping sector. We'll be collecting the data, we'll be looking into the various imports and the export data to actually also involve new technologies to automate the collection of data. And at the end of the day, we will be also having a national perspective plan. It will be released when this council will be formed, mainly to look into what can be done to improve the shipping sector further. At the end of the day, the dispute resolution committees are also there, and these are also the statutory bodies under this act. At the state level, the disputes between the ports and the stakeholders will be handled at the state level, right, by these dispute resolution committees. If you are not satisfied with this committee recommendation or say the order, you can actually go to the High Court only, not to the district courts. And so here, we have to look into the various other things also. For example, with reference to the environmental and safety standards, we here for the very first time we'll be following the MARPOL and the Ballast Water Management Convention for the very first time as an act of the Parliament. Now MARPOL conventions are very important for a prelims examination. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 annexes. Look into the annexes properly. All of these annexes are looking into preventing some specific maritime pollution. For example, oil pollution here, or the various blast engines, pollutants, or the harmful substances in package form, sewage pollution, garbage pollution, and air pollution. So all of these provisions will be adhered to. Apart from this, the ports in the country will be obliged with reference to various environmental safeguards. For example, waste reception facilities must be there, pollution control plan must be there, disaster emergency preparedness plan must be there, especially with reference to Kerala oil spill recently. Also seafarer welfare facilities, for example, the people who are working in this particular environmental compliances, disaster preparedness in the shipping sector, their welfare, their facilities also should be taken care of. And the central government has been empowered to actually look into how this entire environmental compliances are functioning via audits. So this will be ensuring that all of the ports are complying with this law. Also, when we talk about the offenses, some of the offenses which were very petty, which were very non-serious in nature, they have been decriminalized as of now. Instead, where earlier they were imprisonment, right now they have been replaced with fines. And some new offenses which are serious but which were not in the earlier act, these are right now criminalized with fines and even imprisonment. At the end of the day, this act is actually looking into integrating the shipping sector also with the PM Gati Shakti, which is actually a very broad, ministerial collaboration between the major ministries of the country and the various infrastructural growth in our country. For example, say the agriculture ministry will be here, the shipping ministry will be here, the highway ministry will be here. Why? Because all of these ministries have a direct bearing with the ports of our country, with the shipping sector of our country. For example, with reference to any agricultural export, right? And to develop the infrastructure of cold storage or various transportation sector via trains and trucks, we need the convergence of the agri ministry and even the highway ministry. So that is why we have integrated with the Gati Shakti portal. Now, when we compare this act very quickly with the 1908 Act, there are so many improvements. For example, with reference to the scope, we were earlier only looking at the ports and the rivers of our country. But right now, this has also been expanded to include the aircrafts on the water too. Next, the jurisdiction has been kept the same. The statutory bodies have been added as we have seen right now. The port management earlier were having a port conservator who is looking at the major authorities of the port, a harbour master and the health officer. While these have been retained, right now the port conservator will be adjudicating the various penalties. So he has been empowered to impose various penalties right now. Also, with reference to tariffs, we have earlier the major ports with the center, the non-major ports with the state. Right now we have the major ports to be actually looked after by the Board of Port Authority. Also, the non-major port we have seen, it is with the state maritime boards. Next, when we look into the obligations, the ports earlier used to be only concerned with the safety and the navigation side. Right now, you have to look into the environmental aspects also. These things will be there. Also, waste management, disaster plans and seafarer welfare that we have seen. At the end of the day, earlier we did not have had any ballast or rubbish pollution, or say these are the pollutants which are released from the engines or the operations of the ships in the waters. Now, this have been made compliant with the Marpol Convention and the Ballast Water Convention. So this ensures that we have a comprehensive act. But the critics at the end of the day also have some issues with this particular bill. Now, some tell that there can be federal tensions because the shipping and the navigation of inland waterways fall under the concurrent list. So this can create some potential tensions going forward between some state governments and the center. Right? This will be looking into who will be managing the state maritime boards or how independent the members will be there. Also, with reference to appeals from the dispute resolution committee, if we are telling that only appeals will be going to the High Court, don't you think after maybe 3 years, 5 years, already the High Courts are so emburdened with the court cases and the delays. Now we are also adding the appeals here. So this is leading to further more delays at the judiciary level, right? At the end of the day, we also have the implementation challenges because right now we do not have proper clarity on the funding and the autonomy of the ports, which have been labeled as mega ports. Now we have the non-major ports, the major ports. Now what is the perfect definition of the mega ports? This has not been properly done. Also, the health officers can inspect the ships, right, without any BNSS protections, that is witnesses, written reasons and so on. So this can also lead to kind of an authority overreach on the port sector. Also, when we look at the economic impacts, we have positives, right? We will be looking at port effectiveness, we will be boosting the governance of the ports, but at the end of the day, the MSMEs, which are actually medium and small and micro level industries, this can suffer. Why? Because to have their exports to the rest of the world, they have to follow these environmental norms, these kind of regulations, while these are actually very important to be followed. But this actually raise the costs of production and they can actually go out of business if we do not look to give them subsidies for ensuring that their shipping sector or their exports or goods and services are actually compliant on an environmental level too. So that is where we now have to look into some of the other key initiatives in the shipping sector. Now, we were discussing this bill. Now, this bill is in and itself a very big initiative. Apart from that, we have a Maritime India Vision to 2030, which is actually dedicating around 3.5 lakh crore to develop our shipping sector by 2030, which is a huge amount. Apart from this, we also have the Sagar Mala program, which is actually having so many initiatives to actually better the shipping sector of our country, right? As of now, we have around 234 projects which is worth around 2.9 lakh crore, right? We also are looking into port-led industrialization, where we are having around 55,000 crores of funds dedicated to that. We also have so many other aspects to look into the development of the inland waterways. Next, we have the National Logistics Policy 2022, under which we also have the Unified Logistics Interface Platform, which we are trying to link with the entire logistics sector, wherein we have the ports, the airports, the railways, the roadways. So this is actually looking into link everything on a portal. Also, we have the logistics data bank, which is giving crucial insights to the policymakers, to even you tomorrow when you will be become an IAS officer, you will be actually looking into the management of these ports. So you need data for the same. Now this kind of logistics bank will be giving you the data to look into the governance and the effectiveness of the same. Also, we have a coastal berth scheme which is looking into the modernization of the ports in the recent times. Also, we have so many ease of doing business reforms to actually look into how we can encourage more private sector in the shipping sector. Also, there are other key initiatives such as promoting the national waterways, which is actually looking into developing all the inland rivers that we have and also linking with the standards of Amsterdam and so many other countries in the Europe which have modernized their inland waterways to transport the goods via the same. Apart from the same, we also have various passenger segments which can be developed. So that is why we have around 13 national waterways right now under development. Apart from that, we have also the LIC and the various other authorities which are trying to invest in various private ports too, as we have seen, as they have done in the Adani ports and even in the special economic zones for a worth of around 5,000 crore. Apart from this, at the end of the day, we have some green port initiatives, which is looking into modernizing the shipping sector in a sustainable push. We have the Harit Sagar Green Port Guidelines to ensure that the major and the minor ports in the country ensure sustainability guidelines. They do not pollute more, they actually follow the conventions. And we also have the Green Tug Transition Program. Now, these tugs are actually those small vessels which help to transport the ship and bring them to the harbor. For example, if this is the big ship, we have so many small vessels, all surrounding the ship, which will be looking into, pushing the ship in the harbor here. So that is where this kind of small vessels have been, tried to transition to a green energy program, so that the fuel that we use there in those vessels will be actually be green, so actually reduce the pollution in this particular sector. So this was actually a very comprehensive kind of an overview for the entire shipping sector and the port-led development. For your own benefit, you please solve the mains practice question here. As an introduction, you can use this kind of data. Now we will be moving on to the next one. Guys, in this article here in the Hindu today, we have the FAO economist who is writing on the achievements of the global hunger statistics. Now here, according to him, there have been a decline in the global hunger levels in the entire world. And he is also looking into how India has contributed. He's telling that mainly due to India's tremendous efforts with reference to the food programs or the welfare programs in the country, we have reduced hunger not only in the country but also on a global level, and how we can actually go on to reduce even further. So that is why this is extremely important for your prelims and mainly for your mains examination, where we have the issues of poverty and hunger directly. So there have been various questions with reference to malnutrition, hungers in the mains, and that is why we will be starting this topic from the extreme basics from part 1, when we look at what are the basic definition of hunger and food security. Because to write proper answers, you need proper definitions, as I've always told in the sessions before. Now, when we define hunger, we have to be very simple, using less number of words. Firstly, hunger is actually the chronic lack of sufficient calories and nutrients. Not only the food that you will be writing, it is also about calories and nutrients, right? Now, food security on the other hand, according to the FAO, exists only when all people at all times have physical, social and economic access to sufficient, safe and nutritious food. Memorize this definition, you will be requiring this for your mains examination, because there are so many questions regarding food security. So there can be no better definition to define food security as of now. Also, when we look into what are the dimensions of food security, there are availability dimension. For example, the food must be produced properly and they must be reaching the supplies or at the market. Also, the food must be accessible at the end of the day. Accessibility means that they must be affordable, people should be able to buy them, and also the market should be able to properly sell them. At the end of the day, the utilization and the stability are also the important dimensions, where the food which you are consuming, they must be properly utilized by your body. That means they must be having proper nutrition and also a long-term resilience. That means you should be having, as a nation, enough buffer stocks for the country, so that your poorer populations should have food over a long period of time. Now, focusing on the data here, according to Maximo Torero-Cullen, he is telling that according to the recent United Nations release report, that is the State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World 2025 report, now we have 673 million people, around 8.2% of the world population, who are undernourished in 2024. Very important data. Please do note this kind of data down in your notes directly. Now he is telling that this figure is lower than 2023, but not yet lower than the pre-pandemic levels. That is, in 2018 this data was around 7.3% of the people were actually undernourished. Now after pandemic we have seen actually how the global hunger has increased due to lockdowns, due to COVID pandemic, right? In India also that has increased over a period of time. But despite that, from 2023 we have actually seen an improvement in 2024. Now he is actually giving the reason due to India's size, population and food policy innovations, because simply we have a very large population, and also the population of the hungry in the country is also very huge. So if we have such a huge hungry population in the country right now, we already have a substantial chunk of the global hunger proportion, right, from our country itself. So that is why when we look at India's performance from 2020 to 22 and 22 to 24, we find that we have actually decreased undernourishment to 12% from 14.3%. Food inflation impact in the COVID pandemic years were extremely high. As of now, food inflation is stabilizing right now. Can you tell me in the comments below what is the recent food inflation data? Because in the recent times, right, across 1 year, the food prices have been decreasing. And this has been leading to more affordability for the poorer sections of our country. Also, affordability of the healthy diet, that means in 2020-22 during the COVID years, around 60% couldn't afford. This number is also constant as of now, but even we can understand that number is decreasing over a period of time. So everything that I'm giving here, the data, the sources, please do note them down because these are extremely crucial for your examination. Now, when we look into the major aspect of how India tried to decrease this from the pandemic level as of now, we have to understand that in India, we have a comprehensive public distribution system. The public distribution system starts from the farmer, right, where the rice, the wheat, all the important items which the government procures under MSP are actually delivered at the mandis. From the mandis, using roads, transportation, and even the Food Corporation of India, right, these reach the various states, the districts, and to the fair price shops where here in India, we have the National Food Security Scheme. So under this, we have a certain amount of population which are given cereals, wheat, rice at extremely subsidized cost, and in some states they are given totally free of cost, right? Now, the author is telling that we have had so many reforms in the public distribution system or in the ration system. Firstly, we try to digitize, and if we are trying to digitize, we will be having proper records. We can track how many people are getting rations, how many are not, how many excluded. Also, right now we are having Aadhaar based authentication, so we can have more easy targeting, right? We can actually look into where the population in the country is not having proper food. Also, we are right now having electronic point of sale machines at the ration shops. So this also ensured that the ration shops are not letting these grains or say the rice or the various other cereals to the black market or via corruption or via any other illegal means. Also, the One Nation, One Ration card is a revolutionary step according to the author. He's telling that this particular scheme has actually helped every migrant worker in the country to help avail the ration at the nearest ration shop, nevertheless whether that particular person is domiciled in his or her own state or not, right? Because earlier what used to happen that you could only withdraw ration if you are withdrawing the ration from your own village or your own district. But right now this has been removed. You can actually take the benefit anywhere in the country. Also, during the COVID-19 pandemic, the government of India actually extended this food security program to include further extra kilos of important cereals, rice, sugar, wheat via the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana. Right now, this particular items actually varied according to the state governments, but the government of India spent additional funds for this particular purpose. Also, apart from this, we have so many other programs such as the PM Poshan, which is looking into the complete dietary diversity of the school children. Apart from this, we also have the Integrated Child Development Scheme, where we have the pregnant women, the children, the lactating women, where we are targeting them with nutrition and also regular health checkups. Also, we are right now trying to fortify food, or say mainly rice here, with proper iron, right, and various other vitamins, so that the ration shops which are selling those rice, so the people which are buying those rice, they can actually have better amount of micronutrients. Because right now the focus is actually shifting away from food security to also to nutrition security. We have to actually deliver more nutrition security to the people. That is why this fortification program is actually done. Apart from this, we also have so many other schemes to boost food security. Firstly, we have the Essential Commodities Act of 1955, which is actually looking into the proper regulation of the various crops such as tomato, potato, onions, or various other, crops, or say essential items such as sugar and so many other things, to ensure that these are not hoarded, right, by the shopkeepers, so that their prices artificially increase. To stop this artificial price increase via hoarding, we have the Essential Commodities Act, which is ensuring that the regular supply of essential foods and medicines and various other commodities are ensured at the market level. So that is why the poorer sections are actually having more access right now. Next, we also have the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, which is a crop insurance scheme, which is looking into the delivering of insurance program with reference to the crops and the damage of the crops to the farmers. Next, it is also very important to highlight the National Horticulture Mission to promote the cultivation of fruits and vegetables, because you cannot only have rice or say pulses or say various other crops itself. You also need vegetables and fruits to actually deliver those nutrients to your body. That is why this particular horticulture mission has been launched. Also, we have the ENAM, or the National Agriculture Market, which is linking the entire country on an electronic platform. That is, from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, you can actually grow any crop and supply any crop to any part of the country. And this is where this is linked at various mandis of our countries right now, right? So the farmers can actually go to the mandis, they can list their crops, and they can actually see where in the other parts of the country the other suppliers are demanding their produce, right? Also, we recently also declared that the International Year of Millets would be 2023. Not only India, but also the FAO declared that we will be promoting millets on the international scale, because millets are an excellent way to deliver nutritional security in the most climate resilient manner, because these millets are actually very non-water guzzling crops apart from rice and wheat, right? These can grow in any kind of conditions, right, with the least number of requirements and high on value, high on nutrition. At the end of the day, when we talk about the food processing sector, we have the Mega Food Park scheme to promote better food processing sector, to give employment to many say youth and the women, the SSGs in the country. Now, apart from that, to reduce hunger, we have the Eat Right India movement. This is a movement to actually inculcate good, proper habits, to inculcate proper, say, food and drinks and milk products and meat products, to ensure that the people of our country actually eat better, not eat junk food and all those other things, right? Apart from this, we have the midday meal scheme, which are given at the schools, at the government schools in the mainly rural and urban areas, where the food can actually vary from state government to state government. Sometimes the food also includes eggs and poultry products, even milk products, but basically you have to deliver proper amount of standards of calories and protein and carbs and fat requirement to the children while they are coming at the school. Next, we have the Portion Tracker app, which is looking into how the various districts of our country, mainly the backward districts of our country, are failing on the nutritional requirements of the food. At the end of the day, we also have the Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandana Yojana, which is looking into giving financial incentives to the pregnant women of our country. And in the comments, you let me know what is the exact amount that the government gives to them. Now, apart from this, we have so many persistent challenges. According to the author, generally we have three. Firstly, we have hidden hunger. That is a condition where we do not have proper nutrition in our body. We can have enough food. For example, a person who is having enough rice, enough wheat, but that person is not having fruits or vegetables or other protein. So she will be deprived of this kind of qualities growing up. So that is why nutritional deficiency, that their micronutrients are not properly given here. Also, in mainly urban areas, there is a high trend of obesity, because mainly the poorer sections, because they cannot afford fruits or proper meat or milk or various other commodities such as paneer, they actually resort to junk food, which are actually very cheap. And they feel that since the stomach is full, their diet is also full. But that is not the case. This actually results into obesity growing up. And this is extremely bad because this is also a kind of a hunger because your body is not getting proper nutrition. Also, when we look at the various countries and how India is comparing with the countries on the global hunger index, we see that India is on rank 97, where we even have Nepal, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, China ahead of us, right? Also, when we look at India here, most of the parts of the country, as you can see, is in the alarming and the extremely alarming state, correct? And here, this is why we have to focus on the particular imperatives that we have to do to improve the food security of our country. Now, when we look at the second issue here, we have to understand the agri-food system gaps. For example, the post-harvest losses means that 13% of the food is wasted due to poor food chains of our country. We do not have proper cold chains where we actually store food, or we do not have proper warehouses where we can actually keep the food for a long period of time, due to which we have wastages at the farm level itself. Apart from the farm level, right, we also have high nutrition rich food, extremely pricey in the country, right? Consider the case of paneer, consider the case of milk, fruits. These are extremely expensive for the poorer sections to afford, right? Also, when we talk about the climate vulnerability, we have erratic monsoons. Monsoons are unpredictable. Sometimes it is too much, sometimes it is too less, and this is leading to crop failures. And even when we have crop failures, we have price volatility. That means prices increase in the market. There is inflation in the market, and that is why, again we see the issue of affordability in the country. So that is why we have to focus on the roadmap for our zero hunger, which is a part of our sustainable development goal number 2, right? So in your answers also, whenever you are trying to mention some efforts, some initiatives, try to mention the SDG goals. Now, I have already told that we are right now moving on from food security to nutritional security. And that is why we need to focus on eliminating the hidden hunger, right? Hidden hunger is nothing but micronutrient deficiency. How to do that? By using a variety of, cereals, using proper legumes, fruits, vegetables, animal source foods can also help. And at the end of the day, fortified foods, for example, fortified rice, these are actually the way to go forward. That is why India right now should be having more pulses, fruit, vegetable, milk, eggs as a part of our public distribution system too, because these are right now out of affordability range of the poorer sections. We have to help them afford it. Also, we focus on climate resilient crops right now, and we have to focus also on whether maybe the genetically modified crops over a long period of time can actually help us in this particular matter. Well, there are other demerits of the same, but we can consider the same. Also, we have to reduce the post-harvest losses by having better amount of cold storage, warehouses, and also proper logistics, right? We need to have a proper a corridor for the agricultural sector so that the goods in the agriculture sector reach the market on time and in the least waste manner as possible. Also, when we talk about revolutionize the supply chain, we have to integrate them with proper technology such as AI, machine learning to integrate them digitally. Also, we cannot leave the women behind, right? Because we have to understand in our agricultural sector, it is actually women who are pioneering the agricultural employment and even the proper agricultural functions. That is why we need more women-led enterprises, and also we need to promote better farmer-producer organizations so that we can actually link various farmers. We can try to cluster them in one area and try to have proper targeted benefits for them. Also, we have to leverage the digital advantage right now. For example, we have the agri-stack, correct? We are trying to bring in farmer data, their land data, and one platform, so we can have more insights. We also have the electronic national agricultural market, as we have discussed earlier. The ENAM is also trying to help us integrate it digitally. Also, the geospatial tools, for example, using satellites and everything, will be helping us monitor the crop, helping us to plan it. And lastly, we have to recognize how India can actually be a Vishwa Guru in the future, because India's global role with reference to our own efforts which have reduced hunger in the country, we can actually let the African nations or the Latin American nations know of our own initiatives and efforts and help them also reduce the global hunger level in the entire world. So this is exactly what the author focused on. Right now we have two PYQs from 2018 and 2016. Pause the screen here, read the statements and let me know what is the answer in the comments below. Also, there is one practice question for all of you. You can actually practice this. Now we'll be moving on to the simplified section. Guys, right now we are always on a daily basis looking at some of the other news regarding Election Commission of India. Today we have one news where the India bloc is considering a motion to remove the Chief Election Commissioner of our country. Now, Election Commission of India is in a very bad position. We have so many issues regarding it, but for our UPSC perspective, we need to be concerned with what the facts and the information are that will be important for answering the questions, right? Now here, from a GS2 perspective, we know that various constitutional posts and authorities are important. So in this, before beginning this topic, I need you, all of you, to answer this 2017 PYQ, a very easy one, in the comments below, which is regarding the Election Commission of India. Now, when we talk about the appointment of the CEC and the ECs, which are the Chief Election Commissioner and the Election Commissioner, we have to understand that situation is actually very, very complex. Now, what has used to happen earlier than 2023 is that the CEC and the ECs were appointed by the President on the advice of the Union Council of Ministers, which are led by the Prime Minister. So, because we have to understand, we have the Article 324, which actually said that there must be a law by the Parliament which should be looking into the appointments of the EC and the CEC. But there were no law, and in the absence of the law, these appointments were done by the Council of Ministers. But in the Arup Baranwal case, a very, very important case of the Supreme Court, 2023, the Supreme Court held that free and fair elections is actually the basic structure of the constitution. If you are a ruling government and your own council of minister is appointing the CEC and the EC who will be conducting your next election, so definitely you will be selecting someone who is your close friend, right? That is why the Supreme Court told that you cannot go on with this process. There must be an alternate procedure. So since that, in the Article 324, it has been mentioned that there must be a law by the Parliament to regulate the appointment process. And if that law is right now, as of 2023, is not there, let me, Supreme Court, tell that, okay, till the Parliament is enacting a law, I will be giving a panel of 3 people who will be selecting the Election Commissioner and the CEC. So here the panel will be consisting of the Prime Minister, the Leader of Opposition in the Lok Sabha, and the Chief Justice of India. Now this panel or this kind of judgment actually continued for a period of time till the central government came up with a new law. This is in 2023 an act, a new law which passed that the Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition and Union Minister will be there and totally replace the Chief Justice of India in this particular case. Now this Arup Baranwal case actually looked into introducing a judicial check into this executive dominance, because the Supreme Court told that the constitutional makers never would envisage a particular time in the Indian polity where the election commissioner or the chief election commissioner, who are actually the watchdogs of our Indian election system, would only be nominated by the central government. So that is why the Supreme Court brought in a judicial member also. But later on, to overturn the judgment of the Supreme Court, the center brought in the Chief Election Commissioner and Other Election Commissioners Act 2023, where this act told that there should be a search committee which will be chaired by a law minister plus other 2 secretaries. They will be shortlisting 5 names, and these 5 names, will be considered based on an eligibility criteria, that they must have been served as a secretary level officer, the Government of India, and obviously that particular person must be having high standards of integrity plus election management experience at the prior field also. And after this, these names will be recommended to the selection committee. Now the selection committee will be taking the final shot as to who would be the EC and the CEC. The Prime Minister, the Leader of Opposition in the Lok Sabha, and the Union Cabinet Minister, who will be nominated by the Prime Minister, will be there as members of the search committee. Now you can actually understand here. Now there are 2 persons from the central government or by the ruling party, right? So obviously the leader of opposition will be outweighed in their opinions, correct? So this is exactly one of the main issues that the critics are having. Also, it has been told that the tenure and the service of the CEC and the ECs has been degraded, because here the CEC and the ECs will be continuing to serve for 6 years in the service or till they achieve the age of 65 years. Now the salary has been held to the equivalent of the Supreme Court judge, but the reappointment has not been approved in the case of EC or CEC. Also, if EC is becoming the CEC later, the total tenure will be maximum of 6 years only. Now we will be coming to the resignation and the removal later on. Firstly, let us understand what are the concerns here. Firstly, when you are trying to exclude the CJI, the Chief Justice of India, based on the Anup Baranwal case of 2023, you are actually trying to deprive the judiciary from this committee. Now, if there are no judicial members or other members, the executive will be calling all the shots, correct? So that is why this has led to the executive dominance as a form of an criticism by the various experts. Also, in case of the leader of opposition not present in the member there, right? Maybe due to some other reason, maybe due to vacancy, what will happen? Only what the ruling government would want as the EC or the CEC, that person will be appointed to the same, correct? Also, with reference to separation of powers, this will be also a very, very important observation, because this is right now raising a very important question. Can Parliament override a Supreme Court constitutional based judgment via legislation? Because earlier this Anup Baranwal case was actually delivered by a constitutional bench looking into all the constitutional matters, right? And that is why the Supreme Court looked into all of these observations, right? Supreme Court also told that Parliament never intended that the executive to have absolute power to appoint CEC and EC as a part of its 2023 judgment, right? Also, it told that a party in power will always have an insatiable quest to continue in its saddle. That means the party in power will always select the person who is actually friends with the ruling party or the ruling government of the day. So this is actually a very, very important constitutional issue right now, correct? Also, the impact on the democracy also is something which we are seeing in the news right now. According to various experts and according to various reports, we are seeing how Election Commission is in the news. And the opposition that is why asking for a removal process of the current CEC. Right? They are citing that there are constitutional procedures and the Article 324 subclause 5 that CEC can only be removed as a process which has been highlighted in Article 124 subclause 4, which is similar to the removal of a Supreme Court judge. Now the key difference between the CEC and the ECs is that the CEC can be impeached only like the Supreme Court judge, which must be coming via parliamentary approval, but the ECs can be removed only on the CEC's recommendations, correct? And how the CEC will be removed? A notice of motion will be introduced in the Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha only on the charges of misbehavior or incapacity. After that, an investigation will be done via judges and MPs. After that, a parliamentary vote will be done where 2/3 of majority present and voting in both of the houses must be fulfilled as a criteria. And at the end of the day, President will be removed if this parliament is approving this kind of removal. So let us see what will be happening. This is very unlikely that the present CEC will be removed in this manner, because there are issues with the majority in the house with respect to the opposition, but it will be an interesting thing what will be going forward. Mainly for exam perspective, this was everything that you need to know. Now we'll be moving on to the next one. Guys, in recent times we will be having monthly unemployment reports, because the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation will be on a monthly basis coming up with the labor force survey, and here right now the unemployment rate has declined in the latest survey. We'll be looking into the data. You do not have to remember all of the data, just remember the important trends, because going forward you need to look into what is the monthly and the annual trends, which will be important for your examination if at all there is a question which is asking you to answer the recent trends in the Indian unemployment sector. Now, when we talk about the national unemployment rate, the July 2025 percentage is 5.2%, which is actually down from the June data. Now when we talk about which gender is more unemployed, we see that males are more unemployed as compared to the females. Also, when we talk about the rural and the urban sector, which sector is more unemployed, we are having more unemployment in the urban sector, and that has increased from the last month. Correct? Also, when we look at the youth unemployment, which is actually looking into the employment statistics between 15 to 29 years, all India level, we have around 15% youth who are actually unemployed, which is actually down from the last month. Next, when we have the labor force participation rate, on an all India level, we have around 54.9%. When we compare female and male, we have more males who are participating in the labor force than the female here. Next, when we look at some state specific data, we have Himachal Pradesh, who is having the highest proportion of youth unemployment. Correct? Also, when we look at the state of Rajasthan, it is having the overall highest unemployment rate. The lowest is in Gujarat. Gujarat is also having the lowest youth unemployment rate. Correct? And also, when we compare with Delhi, Delhi is having the lowest labor force participation rate. So these are some of the important data that as of now you can note down, and here we are looking into the main reasons behind the trend. Now firstly, why there has been a decline in the July unemployment? Firstly, because we have post-monsoon farm activities, due to which there are, in the rural areas, a lot of people actually got employment opportunities and boosted rural jobs. But please note, this is a seasonal thing, right? When this post-harvest season will be going on, post-monsoon season will be going away, again there will be unemployment coming back. Also, the female workforce has increased due to more Manrega jobs and self-help group linked initiatives. Also, this rising youth unemployment in the urban areas, which is at around 19%. Remember this data, right? This is mainly due to the skill mismatch, because right now the world has moved on to digital skills, financial literacy and so on. Still, we have a lack of skill in the, say, schools and the colleges, due to which the youth are not able to get proper jobs. Also, the gig economy, for example, the Swiggy, Zomato and all those attractive sectors which used to be attractive 5-6 years ago, right now they are stagnating. The wages are not increasing. The delivery charges are extremely fat. There are too much of discounts which are actually borne by the delivery personnel themselves. Also, we have to also account for why Himachal Pradesh is actually the worst performing state. Recently, it witnessed so many floods, as you can see here, which resulted into 195 deaths approximately, and also the loss of so much amount of livestock. This is extremely sad for the people who lost their jobs in the livestock sector, and also we have limited industries to absorb those unemployed youth or the unemployed people. That is why a lot of people there are actually unemployed. So these are all the things that you need to know. Now please answer this 2018 and the 2013 PYQs in the comments. These are very interesting. It will be testing your concepts of unemployment very well. Now we'll be moving on to the next topic. Guys, Mr. R. Rangarajan on a regular basis publishes so many articles which are extremely important for your Indian polity. Now here today he is talking about the nominations to the Union Territory Assemblies, which is extremely important for your GS2, Parliament and State Legislature, and how they are actually structured. On a daily basis, often on a daily basis, we will be noting how important he is publishing articles like this, and that is why it is very important to actually look into the details. Firstly, when we look into the actual matter here, what happened? Recently the Union Home Ministry, before the Jammu and Kashmir High Court, recently admitted that the Lieutenant Governor of the Jammu and Kashmir will be nominated 5 members to the Legislative Assembly of the Jammu and Kashmir. And the center told the High Court that the Lieutenant Governor, the LG, can do this directly without the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. Now, there are so many constitutional matters, constitutional opinions based on this. Firstly, we have to understand what the Constitution says on this particular thing. Firstly, when we talk about the nominated members, these are present at the Parliament and even in the state legislative councils, right? Now earlier there is a provision of appointing the Anglo-Indian members to the Lok Sabha and also one Anglo-Indian member to the state legislative assemblies, but this was discontinued in 2020. Now, the Rajya Sabha right now has 12 nominated members. Now, these are actually nominated by the President only on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. So, the President cannot unilaterally decide, right, the nominations. Also, the same is present at the state level, where the governor is also doing the same with reference to the aid and advice of the State Council of Ministers, right? Now, this is actually a very complicated process when it comes to the various other union territories. You know, the UTs are actually not entirely, states, right? They do not have full powers like a state. They have some subjects under the state law, some not, right? And that is why you have to look into the comparison between the states and the UT of Delhi, Pondicherry and Jammu and Kashmir. Now, when we talk about Delhi, the Delhi Assembly does not have any nominated member, correct? And that is why it is actually thought of very democratic, because only the elected people are going to the assemblies here. When we talk about the Puducherry, right, which is also an union territory, we have 30 MLAs there and 3 nominated members who are directly nominated by the central government, right? So that is why the democratic control of the 30 MLAs and their influence to dominate is not listened to, because here the center is empowered via the Government of UT Act of 1963. Now, the case regarding the Jammu and Kashmir Union Territory is the same with reference to the LG, the Lieutenant Governor, right? Here, there is a question right now whether it should be with or without the advice of the Council of Ministers or not. But as of now, we have 90 members, 90 MLAs, and 5 members, out of which there must be 2 women, 2 Kashmiri migrants, and 1 displaced person from Pakistan occupied Kashmir in the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly. So this is where, this comparison is here. Now, we have to understand this from the perspective of some Supreme Court judgment. Firstly, from the Lakshmi Narayan case of 2018, where this Puducherry case, where the central government is directly appointing the nominated members, it has been challenged. But the Supreme Court upheld this. Supreme Court told that the union government can nominate 3 members to the Assembly of the Puducherry, and it does not need to be on the aid and advice of the Council of Ministers. Correct? While it later also in its judgment gave detailed guidelines or recommendations, for example, say there must be statutory amendments to lay down a clear procedure for the nominated members to be nominated. The central government on its behalf, cannot try to decide who will be going, right? There are also MLAs who are elected democratically by the state people themselves, right? That is why the legitimacy of the MLAs should be listened to. Apart from this particular judgment also told that there must be clarity on where such nomination should emanate from. Should the central government directly release some names, or should it consult with the Puducherry UT also, or should there be a particular office who will be looking at the nomination from the assembly side? So all of this were actually a part of the judgment there, but these were not ever implemented. Now, going forward in 2023, the Constitutional Bench in the NCT of Delhi versus Union of India introduced this triple chain of accountability. Now, for the first time, Supreme Court told that in any elections, the people are the supreme. Now there is a chain of command, that there are civil servants which all of you are preparing for, right? Civil servants are responsible to the ministers, ministers are responsible to the legislature, legislature is responsible to the people with reference to elections every 5 years. So if finally the people of the country are actually supreme with reference to who to send to the legislative assembly, they should also have an indirect say who should be the nominated members via their own legislative, say MLAs, right? So here the MLAs must also have some say. So this is where, in this Delhi case of 2023, the Supreme Court told that the Lieutenant Governor must be acting on the aid and advice of the elected government, except in matters where Delhi Assembly lacks legislative competence. Now, this case is not with reference to nominated member, because Delhi Assembly does not have any nominated member. This is actually in the context that the LG of Delhi is actually bound by the aid and advice of the government's Council of Ministers, except public order, police and land. With reference to all other matters, this means that the state government will be in control of appointing, transferring officers in the Delhi administration. Now, earlier, the LG used to interfere in these matters there. So here, in the case of Jammu and Kashmir, this is a very special context, because earlier we know that it used to be a full-fledged state with its own constitution. And in 2019, we have seen how this status were downgraded to the status of an union territory with legislature. Also, the nomination powers are right now given to the LG, correct? And also the Union Home Ministry affidavit has explicitly told that LG can act without the advice of the Council of Ministers. So that is why the way forward, according to various experts, is actually, firstly, we should be following the democratic principle. That is, with reference to the aid and advice of the elected Council of Ministers, we should be trying to nominate the members. Also, with reference to who should be coming with the nomination, who should be coming with the names, there must be a particular clarity, and a parliament law must be passed again to designate who should be doing that. Also, with reference to center and the UT relations, which we have seen in the context of Delhi earlier, right now we have the same government in Delhi, but with reference to this different ruling parties in the union territories, we have so many central UT issues. That is why we should be avoiding the central interference. And at the end of the day, for Jammu and Kashmir, we need to also look into security matters, the various sensitive issues. That is why we also have to respect the local democratic accountability at the end of the day. So this was all for this topic. We'll be moving on to the next one. Guys, here from the same page of the Hindu, we have another article here. How should toll collection practices be reformed, which is the main aspect, because from GS3 perspective, we have to discuss this from the aspect of infrastructure and roads. Now, when we talk about this topic, the main thing is that in India, we have some issues with our toll practices at our highways. That means whenever we go via any highways, we pay the tolls, right? Right now it has been replaced with FASTag. So right now we have to recharge our FASTag wallets, and then we can actually seamlessly travel on our Indian national highways. But recently, the Public Accounts Committee of the Parliament has recommended so many important measures that we must be trying to take to improve the toll collection system at our national highways. Report has been submitted to the Parliament, and now it is up to the Parliament to actually decide what to do with this kind of recommendations. But the main thing is that we have some current issues. For example, we have something which we know as perpetual tolling. That means, if some highway has been built, we know that there have been some money which has been spent for this. Now, can we not say that when the government and the private sector has recovered all this money, after that, we should be having minimal amount of toll charges, that is 5 rupees, 10 rupees, but this has not been seen. Now, according to the National Highways Act 1956 and the National Highways Fee Rules 2008, right, there are no sunset clause on when the toll collection will be ending. Because even after recovering cost of construction maintenance, it has been seen that every year 3% plus 40% wholesale price index, that is inflation adjusted level, has been increasing with reference to the toll prices. That means every year the tolls are increasing. It is becoming unaffordable for the various people, right? The local residents within 20 kilometers, right, they are sometimes having exemptions of not to pay some charges or tolls. But what happens to mainly the outsiders, right? But we have to understand that there are so many other VIPs, VVIPs who are exempted from paying this. But what happens to the lower income classes, the lower middle classes who have to pay these exorbitant toll fees, right? Apart from these local residents who have to pay only nominal fees and the exemptions of VIPs, VVIPs, now the common person has to bear all this brunt. Also, there is lack of transparency, that is, the toll rates are sometimes very dynamic and fluctuating, right? They are not reflecting the actual maintenance costs. They are actually much more higher. Okay. Also, there are sometimes FASTag glitches which are causing delays also. Correct. Also, at the end of the day, there are traffic bottlenecks. That is, there are so many barriers on the toll connection system. The main idea of FASTag should be that there must not be any kind of restriction with reference to the movement of the vehicles along a toll plaza. That means the FASTag detector must be very advanced. It should be detecting and it should be letting in the vehicles without any barrier, without any obstruction, without any delay. But as of now, we are not having proper real-time monitoring of the toll plaza efficiency. So different toll plazas are operating on a different system. Correct. Also, when we talk about the perpetual tolling system, correct? Now, based on the construction, for example, if the highway has been constructed by the union government, so the fee will be collected by the union government itself. But if it has been constructed by some other concessionaire or some other private sector in collaboration also maybe with the government sector on the build, operate, transfer, for example, the private sector has built the road, is operating the road, and after it has accumulated all the cost of building and operating, finally it will be transferring it to the government, or by the toll, operate, transfer, or in some cases some highways are also given to various other private sector to actually operate them, collect the toll and then transfer after the maintenance charges. So in these cases the private sector or say the various other people will be collecting, and that is why we have seen at various toll plazas we do not have proper management techniques. We have various barriers, we have sometimes higher fees which are collected apart from the maintenance charges, correct? Also, the same has been seen with reference to the infrastructure investment trust. These are actually some trust or collection of various banks, companies which actually talk about improving the infrastructure sector. So the same issue has been seen at their end also. Now when we actually look into the total revenue from 2005 to 6, the revenue was around 1000 crores from the toll collection. Right now, if you can understand, in 2023-24, this amount has increased to 55,000 crore, which is amounting to around 25,000 crore going to the Consolidated Fund of India, and rest of the money is going to the private sector or the various other stakeholder such as InvITs or say the various people operating under the BOT or the TOT model. So in this way, we have seen how the toll collection is increasing, but the common person is actually bearing the brunt. That is why these key recommendations are given that as of now there must be a sunset kind of a clause to understand when the toll collection will be ending. Also, there must be an independent regulator. Earlier there are no bodies as of now, but this is a recommendation right now. There must be a toll regulatory authority to decide on the fees and the fines and mainly the charges. Also, with reference to charges and the pricing, right now we have seen how this is based on some weak percentages annually, but the committee is recommending it must be linked to actual maintenance costs. Also, the FASTag reforms are overdue. On-site FASTag kiosks must be there to recharge and to cause less number of delays. Also, there must be no barrier at the toll plazas. Also, if there are some delays due to construction or various other things, automated refunds must be there for the people who are actually traveling on the roads, right? So here the Ministry of Road and Transportation has actually acknowledged these concerns, and it has told that we are already working with the Niti Aayog towards this direction, right? Also on this particular matter, we are actually looking into how this user fee will be determined using some parameters such as vehicle operating costs, damage to the highway due to vehicle use, and also the user's willingness to pay. So based on this, they are already looking with Niti Aayog on a particular framework. But apart from this, these are the other recommendations we should be trying to also adopt. And now we'll be moving on to the last article. Guys, this article is looking into when can the courts of our country order for a recount of the votes in any election. Let us look into it. It's a very interesting matter. See, here the main dispute actually took place in Panipat. Okay, what happened is that there were actually two people who contesting for the elections, Mohit Kumar and Kuldeep Singh. It was alleged by various people there that Kuldeep Singh actually manipulated the election process and won the initial elections. After there were so many irregularities and the evidence was presented and another election was held, Mohit Kumar won the election. So this meant that there was some rigging, there was some issues with reference to the EVMs used in this particular election, and that is why the experts are telling that this is the first instance of the Supreme Court conducting a recount of the EVM votes, right? So that is why we have to understand about how can election result be challenged? See, with reference to any kind of election results, they can be challenged directly by filing an election petition. With reference to parliamentary or assembly or state council elections, this kind of petition has to be filed at the High Court of the state. But with reference to local bodies for panchayat and municipal elections, this has to be done with reference to district court. Both have to be done within 45 days. Who can challenge? Only a candidate or an elector related to their election can do so. Also, the time frame is 45 days and must only be with reference to material facts, and corrupt practices can be investigated only if there are some names, dates or places of election manipulation. Now there is a very crucial question. When can courts order a recount? They can only do so when there is an extraordinary issue. That is, we have to understand that in any democracy, the secrecy of votes is very important. And that is why recounting means that your vote preference can be exposed to the external world. And this will be allowed only if the petitioner gives specific material facts. There has to be on the face of it, the prima facie, some evidence which is directly, looking into the mistake which is occurring. And here we have to understand that the courts can only overturn or change the election result when it is satisfied that the petitioner or other candidate received a majority of valid votes and there have been some other grounds for invalidating these elections. For example, bribery, undue influence, promoting enmity, disqualification or non-qualification of the winning candidates, improper rejection of the nomination papers, improper acceptance or rejection of votes, and also violation of the constitution or election laws. In all these cases, we have to understand there must be a material fact or evidence for this matter. Correct? And this also happened in 2024 in the Chandigarh elections too. So this is where this entire issue was important for your examination, and I thank you all at the end of the day for being a very patient audience because this was a very long discussion. But please do attempt the quiz which is following up, and till we meet again, all the best and best of luck. Thank you.